Today we're going to make some garlic flatbreads. These are quite a crispy sort of a pita bread that you griddle and serve them with some garlic butter. So your first ingredient then is going to be your butter, and you're going to need about 25 grams of it. So you're going to need a lump about that sort of size. Okay. You now need to go to microwave that for about 30 seconds, and whilst that's doing then we'll get on with the garlic and with the parsley. So you're going to need to take your garlic, cut off the ends and peel off the skin, and then you have a choice of either using a microplane grater, or you can simply chop it very finely using your sharp knife. Entirely up to you. I like to microplane mine. Okay, so there's my garlic. I'm just going to get my butter. Okay, so pop all the garlic that you've prepared into the melted butter. Get yourself a knife, give that a mix round. And then the next stage is going to get your parsley. So here we are with some parsley. So pick off some of the stems. You can use any other herb if you prefer, or you can just leave it with garlic butter. It doesn't matter. So take your herbs, making sure there's not too much stalk on them. And then get yourself a sharp knife. And then you're going to chop them very finely on the board. So if you use quite a big knife, you should be able to hold the end of it and chop it along like that until it's fairly fine. Okay, you're going to pop your your herbs in that you've chopped. Into your butter, give them a mix round. Add into it also some freshly ground salt and some pepper. And then you're ready then to put that to one side while you get on with making the flatbreads. So for the next stage, you're going to have to get rid of all the mess that you've made. You need to get yourself a large mixing bowl and some scales. And it's self-raising flour that you're going to need. And you're going to need about 175 grams. You're also going to need, if you have got some, a little bit of baking powder, about half a teaspoon. If you haven't got any, don't worry. There's some raising agent in the self-raising flour, so that should be enough. So about half a teaspoon of that goes in. And again, you're going to need some salt and a little bit of pepper. And then the last ingredient is some just everyday cheap and cheerful natural yoghurt. And you're going to need to add about 150 millilitres of that. So okay. Take yourself a spoon then and mix those ingredients together. Now try if you possibly can not to add any more liquid into it, because actually once you start handling this you find that it gets quite wet. It is quite wet, I should say. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see now that it's stuck together as a dough. And at which point I'm going to be able to actually put this onto the table. So you're going to need a little bit of extra flour now to flour the table. So sprinkle that reasonably liberally, I should say, and then take your dough and put all of it onto the table. Now there's no reason at all why you can't use all of the crumbs. So put them all together and then mix them into a ball of dough. Okay, so pick up all those crumbs. And you should see now it's becoming much more soft and elasticy, which is what you want. But at the same time, it does start getting a little bit more sticky. So at this stage, you may need to add a little bit more flour on your table. Okay, so that's the sort of consistency that you're looking for. Okay, now it's going to make about 9 or 10, depending on how many people are in your family and how big you want them to be. Depends on how many you're going to break this into. So you're just going to be rolling it pretty much into a sausage and then just dividing it down each time. So if you go from half to half again to half again, then that will give me roughly 8 of a similar sort of size. So have a look at those and see what you think, see if they need to be evened out in any way. If you're a purist, of course, you can get your scales out and you can weigh them. Okay, just roughly roll them into balls in your hands. Like so, and then they in a moment are going to be ready to roll. Now they are already quite sticky, so at the next stage you're going to need some more flour down. Okay, so I'm going to leave those now for about 5 minutes, and what you're going to do now is to tidy up the mess that you've already made. Okay, 5 minutes has gone then, and we're going to now take the balls of dough and start rolling them out. Now you've got to think about how you're going to fry them. Okay, now I have got a square griddle pan, and I know therefore that if I do them in circles then I can only fry one at a time, and that takes quite a long time. Whereas if I do them into more of a pita bread, sort of like a pear type shape, or a teardrop shape I should say, then I can get 2 in at a time. And therefore the whole process is much quicker. So that's what I'm going to aim for. Now if you remember, I said that they might be quite sticky. So as you go, you may have to add more flour. Now this is not like pastry, so it's no big deal if you turn them over or you use your hands and you stretch them. All of those things are absolutely fine. The most important thing is that you need to get them thin, because then they will crisp up for you. Okay, so that's the sort of size and shape that I'm going for. I'm just going to stand one on my hand for you, just even though the pan's cold, just so you can see. Oops. Try again. Just so you can see how big it is and how therefore I'll be able to get a second one in there. Okay, I'm not heating my pan up yet. Just leave that to one side while I do some more shaping. Now obviously I'm not going to shape them all in your presence. I'll just do a couple so that you can see them in the pan. If they start sticking to the table or the rolling pin, then just add some more flour. want it to be roughly the same size as the other one, so that everybody feels like they're getting an equal sized portion to eat. Okay, so that will do for my second one. So if I put them side by side for you, you can see they're fairly similar, which is what we were after. I'm going to just put those now. I'm actually just going to leave mine on a chopping board at the side while I get on with doing the others, and then I will fry them. So there I have my garlic flatbreads ready to fry. So at the moment then I have gone over to the hob and I've got my ridged sort of griddle pan preheating on a medium gas. And then I'm now going to very carefully add 2 of the flatbreads into the pan. Okay, and then depending on how hot your hob is will depend upon how long these are going to actually take to puff up. So you should be able to see now they've been on for about 20 seconds and they're starting to get some bubbles rising in them, which is a good sign. So we're about another 10 or 20 seconds further in, and you should be able to see on the furthest one away how a large air bubble is forming and how they almost start curling a little bit. Now you might have noticed that there's nothing on the pan, there's no oil or anything, it's just a dry frying pan. So they've puffed up loads now, very much like pita breads do. Okay, so as they puff up, press them down a little bit and then quite carefully flip them over. So they can go back on the other side again if you're not happy with how brown they are. But the idea is now that they're going to puff up again. Okay, now because I've got a griddle pan, you can see I've got some lines on mine. If you were just doing yours in a frying pan, you wouldn't get the lines, but you would get the golden finish on them. It's quite tricky to turn them over with one hand. And I'm just going to keep cooking these now until they've browned on the other side. Okay, so here are the garlic breads that we've just done. And then I'm just going to paint them with some garlic butter. Now if you want to, you can actually do that later. You could cook them all first, and then just before you want to eat them, you can put them back in the dry pan just for a minute or two just to warm up, and then brush them all ready to serve. Okay, so here are the finished garlic flatbreads, ready to either eat now or, as I say, to reheat in a dry pan and to serve later when you are eating your dinner.